Hello and welcome to the Cardboard Dungeons X-Wing Ship Reviews. My name is Pat, and in this video I'm looking at the Phantom 2 expansion. Now this of course is from the Star Wars Rebels TV show. If you're not familiar with that show or not a fan, you might be wondering, why is there already a ship called the Phantom in the game, and now we have a Phantom 2? Well, I think it was Season 3 of Rebels. Near the beginning of the season, the original Phantom gets destroyed, and the crew of the Ghost finds this new shuttle, and they take it back and replace the original shuttle with it. So what this is technically a Sheathipede-class shuttle. It's I think it's kind of cool looking. The original attack shuttle I thought looked a little too much like something out of Star Trek. This one kind of does too, but I like the lines and the design on this ship better. And I have to also say that I really do enjoy how the ships from Star Wars Rebels that are making their way into X-Wing tend to be more colorful with their paint jobs, the yellows and teal and bright orange and different paint jobs we've seen on things like the Ghost and this ship and Sabine's TIE. And even the Shadowcaster for Scum and Villainy is one of the more colorful ships in that faction, and it has been featured in Rebels. So hopefully they'll keep that up. I think that more colorful and well-painted ships are interesting to look at, if nothing else. So alright, let's jump right into the maneuver options for the Sheathipede-class shuttle. So here's the maneuver dial for it. Nothing too spectacular on here. It can't go very fast. The speed 4 straight is red. Speed 3 turns are red. It's got everything else except for the speed 1 turns. As far as normal maneuvers go, can't go speed 5, of course. And it does have a K turn at speed 3. Not a ton of green on the dial, only 4 maneuvers. So that's going to be something to keep in mind when looking to clear stress, which will be important for some of the pilots for this ship. Over on the stat line, we can see an attack value of 2, and this ship does have an auxiliary firing arc, that is the rear-facing arc, from which it can make primary weapon attacks, in addition to a standard front-facing arc. Agility value of 2, 4 hull, and 1 shield. Over on the action bar, we've got focus, target lock, and coordinate. We've seen coordinate before on the Upsilon class shuttle for the Imperials. Now the Rebels have it as well. And if you're not familiar, what it does is it lets you spend an action to allow a friendly ship at range 1 or 2 to take an action. So basically this is a support ability. You can sacrifice your action to give another friendly ship an action. Very powerful ability, and it combos well, especially in the Rebel faction, which is all about helping each other out. So it's good to see this coordinate action available to them. Down on the upgrade bar, the Sheathipede-class shuttles can take 1 crew and 1 astromech, which we've seen before, and it's a good combination. There's a lot of interesting options for both of these slots, and we've got some new ones in this very expansion, as you might expect. The top pilot for the ship is Fen Rao. We've seen him before as a pilot for Scum and Villainy. Now he has defected to the Rebels, which happened in the TV show, so it's keeping up with the lore here. He's got a pilot skill of 9 and costs 20 points, and he can take an elite upgrade. His ability says, when an enemy ship inside your firing arc at range 1 to 3 becomes the active ship during the combat phase, if you are not stressed, you may receive 1 stress token. If you do, that ship cannot spend tokens to modify its dice when attacking this round. So that's a super, super powerful ability right there. Basically, you get a stress, but then another ship in your firing arc, before it makes an attack, basically gets shut down from spending any kind of tokens that modify its dice, which is a focus token and target lock tokens as far as currently in the game. So basically they're just going to be rolling naked dice, with the exception of a few abilities and upgrades that might grant rerolls outside of things like target locks. Han Solo's ability to reroll all of his dice, for example. There's a lot of stuff like that in the game, so it's not an all-powerful ability. There's still going to be some ways around it. Expertise would be another one. which of course lets you change all of your focus results into hits without the need to spend the focus token. So there will be some pilot abilities and some other things in the game that can get around it, but still a very good ability. In addition to, of course, having that coordinate action on the ship, it makes it a very powerful support ship and a high pilot skill for Fen Rao as well, keeping his 9. Next up we have Azure Bridger, pilot skill of 5, 17 points, and he can take an elite upgrade as well. He's got the same pilot ability we've seen before on Ezra. When defending, if you're stressed, you can change up to 2 of your focus results to evade results. Nice defensive ability for Ezra. Ezra wants to be stressed, of course, and there's a lot of ways in the game to do that, and that kind of frees him up as far as some of the upgrade options. Some of the better elite upgrades in the game, for example, Push the Limit or Rage, give you stress in order to use their effects. And of course, that's a boon for Ezra, powering up his pilot ability. So kind of takes the drawback of some of those stress-giving upgrades and turns it into an advantage. Next, we've got Zeb Aurelios, pilot skill of 3 and 16 points. When defending, you may cancel critical results before hit results. Same ability we've seen on Zeb before. Not a super awesome ability, but it's good for keeping the shuttle alive a little bit longer than normal. Doesn't have to take crit results. If you can cancel hits, you can cancel those first. So pretty nice defensive ability. Nothing too spectacular here. 16 points though, a very low point cost to get this ship on the board. And finally, with a pilot skill of 1 and 15 points, we've got AP5. When you perform the coordinate action after you choose a friendly ship and before it performs a free action, you may receive 2 stress tokens to remove 1 stress token from it. So that's kind of a double dip ability here. When you give a coordinate action to another friendly ship so it can take a free action, you can also take stress off of it at a cost of taking 2 stress onto your own ship. But super, super good support ability. And 15 points, I mean, that is such a low cost to get a nice support piece into your squadron. This ship is going to find its way, I think, into a lot of Rebel builds. And that pilot skill 1, usually not something that's super great in the game, but pilot skill 1, you're going to move first in most cases, and that means you're going to get the opportunity to coordinate first. Coordinate before a lot of other effects have happened. And so that can be very powerful as well, depending on how you're using it. So I think AP5, out of all these pilots, AP5 might be the one that we'll see the most in play, just because of that low point cost and the ability paired with coordinate. Very cool. I'm going to say best pilot probably for this ship, just in general. Also worth noting, there are no non-unique pilots for this ship. Now moving on to the upgrade cards, not a whole lot of them in this expansion, but there are some really good ones here. So we're going to start with a brand new crew. It is Courier Droid, 0 point cost, and it's limited, which means not more than 1 of these on the same ship. At the start of the Place Forces step, you may choose to treat your pilot skill value as 0 or 8 until the end of the step. So that means at the beginning of the game, you're going to place your ship first or closer to the end of you and your opponent placing ships on the board. So it gives you a little bit of strategic flexibility. Also, it's free to put on a ship, so if you have an open crew slot and no points to put anything else on there, might as well throw on a Courier Droid. Not limited to any faction either, so anybody can take this. Next up, another new crew upgrade. It is Maul. No longer Darth Maul if you're following Star Wars Rebels. He did turn up again, and he's pretty much as pissed off at the Empire as he is at Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Rebellion. So he's a equal opportunity hater now. Maul costs 3 points. He's scum only unless your squad contains Azure Bridger. So that's interesting. That can be Pilot Ezra or Crew Ezra. So as long as you've got any version of Ezra in your squadron, you can bring Maul along as well. And that's a nice thematic link into Star Wars Rebels, where Maul was insisting that Ezra was his apprentice for a while. And what Maul does is, when you're making an attack, if you are not stressed, you can receive any number of stress tokens to re-roll that many dice. After performing an attack that hits, you can remove one of your stress tokens. So he kind of has a double ability here. You can use his ability to reroll dice and take stress, or you can remove stress after you hit with an attack, or you can do both. But you could just have Maul hanging out on a ship and just use him to clear stress after you make successful attacks. Also, because Maul gives you stress, and Ezra likes stress so much, he pairs really well with either version of Ezra, pilot or crew, not surprisingly. So well done with this card, I think. A nice implementation of Maul into the game, and it's a decent ability without being too great. Of course, getting rerolls is always good. Taking stress for each die you reroll kind of counterbalances the ability. It's going to mean you're not going to want to do it all the time, probably, unless you have a ship that just doesn't care about stress. There are some ghost builds that are like that, so you would probably fit pretty well on that with certain other crew where you just don't care about how much pile the stress on, it can still do things. Okay, next up we have the Astromech version of Chopper. Now we've seen him as a crew before with the Ghost expansion. Now we've got Astromech Chopper. He is 1 point, and you need to spend an action to use his ability, which is discard one other equipped upgrade card to recover one shield. I think that's a great ability. So we've got a little more regen for Rebels, but Chopper, of course, being the destructive droid that he is going to get rid of upgrade cards in order to give you back shields. And I really like the artwork on this too. That courier droid, if you don't follow Rebels, is pretty interesting. There was an episode where they took a Imperial courier droid and reprogrammed it or did something to spy on the Empire. And at the end of the episode, the crew wanted to keep that droid. They liked it, but Chopper wasn't having it, and he ended up pushing that droid off of the open hatch of the Ghost as it was flying away. Basically murdered another droid, and I think this picture is him kind of doing that, like he's shocking that droid and doing something to him. And if you look at the courier droid artwork too, you can see Chopper lurking in the background. So great job on the artwork tying into that episode of Rebels. And yeah, this is a good card for 1 point. There's a lot of 0 point cards in the game now that you can throw on ships, like guidance chips, for example. Even if you don't have ordnance, just throw guidance chips on if you have an open modification slot, and then Chopper can scrap that to get a shield back later on. Courier droid's another good one too, 0 points. Use it at the beginning of the game. His ability never is useful again, so you can just have Chopper chop him up and give a shield back. Alright, next up is the most talked about probably upgrade in this expansion, Flight Assist Astromech, 1 point. You cannot attack ships outside your firing arc. After you execute a maneuver, if you didn't overlap a ship or obstacle and there are no enemy ships inside your firing arc at ranges 1 to 3, you may perform a free boost or barrel roll action. So a good way to reposition, to get out of enemy arcs, or to bring your firing arc into to get a shot on an enemy ship. Fantastic upgrade for the original X-Wings and for the Y-Wings with the BTL-A4 title on them as well, since they can only fire out of their primary firing arc with that title. One thing I have to say though, one copy of this, and really people who are going to want to try to test the old X-Wings and Y-Wings now and see if this upgrade improves them, like I think it probably will, are going to want at least 4 copies of this. And the fact that there's only one here, and that the Sheathipede-class shuttle is probably not something that you'll ever want more than one of in a squadron, kind of gives me hope that we're gonna see an announcement pretty soon about some kind of a expansion box that has an X-Wing and a Y-Wing. Might tie back into Rogue One, since we saw those ships prominently in the space battle in that movie. And they've been talking for a long time about improving the original X-Wing. They've made a couple of passes at it, but I really think that this upgrade might be the thing that gets certain pilots, at least, back into competitive play. but people are going to want more than one, so hopefully there's something in the works that's going to bring more copies of this Astromech into the game, because I'd hate to think that Fantasy Flight has gotten greedy enough to just assume people are going to want this card enough they're going to buy 4 copies of an expansion that there's really no need to have 4 of that ship. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that there's something coming that we're going to see more of this in. So maybe save yourself some money. All right, finally we have new copies of the titles for the Ghost and then the Phantom 2 to take the place of the original Phantom if you choose to do so. So the Ghost title is basically the same as we saw before in the original Ghost. It just swaps Phantom 2 with the original Phantom. So you can start the Phantom 2 docked onto the Ghost. And then after you executing a maneuver with the Ghost, you can deploy the Phantom off of it if you want to. And then the Phantom 2 title says, while you're docked, the Ghost can perform primary weapon attacks from its special firing arc, same as the original Phantom did. So you can have a rear-facing arc with primary weapon attacks out of the Ghost as long as the ship is docked there. But for this ship, while docked at the end of the activation phase, the Ghost may perform a free coordinate action. So it shares the coordinate action onto the Ghost, turning it into more of a support ship than the attack shuttle, which let it make a turret attack in the end phase after combat. So now you've got a couple of options with your Ghost. Do you want it to be more of a support type ship while its Phantom is docked, or do you want it to be an attack ship? And that's the Phantom 2 expansion for X-Wing. It's an interesting ship, very inexpensive. It's going to find its way into Rebel squadrons, I think. At least the 15-point AP5 pilot will. Not sure how I feel about Fen Rao with a super high pilot skill and a little more costly at 20 points. He's got a good ability on him, but the ace style pilot with this type of ship, not gonna be super great in combat, so I'm not really sure you need to spend that many points. But AP5 is great, and Flight Assist Astromech is great. Chopper Astromech version I think is great. I think Maul is interesting. I don't know that he's going to see a lot of play, but I think it'll be fun to play around with him in both Scum and Rebel builds with Ezra. And ultimately, this ship gives you another option when you're thinking about Ghost builds, and I like the Ghost a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to see what types of builds come out of this ship with the Ghost and these new expansions, or these new upgrades rather, that come in this expansion. So as always, thanks for watching the Cardboard Dungeon, and I'll see you next time.